wonderful and great people. But a lot of times they're not meeting their goals because they're too busy saying yes to other things and they don't even see it, right? And that's where the issue lies. I can give many examples, and it's something that I actually like to joke around with people when they go, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time because I got to go take my mom over here and I got to go do this over there and I got to go do that over there. And it's like, okay, cool. Those are all valid things. But you're telling me your goal and objective is to do this. And the reality is that if you're having a hard time finding the time, then how will you ever do it? You won't, because you're not making the time to do it.
This is extraordinary. Can't ignore it. This my story. I've been more than ready. And this stuff I'm cooking up, this here like culinary. True intentions, must I mention, it's just legendary.
Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Vladimir Ledesma.
And this is Fabio Suarez.
And we want to invite you to another episode of the Everything is Everything podcast. Today we're going to be covering one of my personal favorite books, The One Thing by Keller and Jay Papasan. This book has literally changed my life, and rereading it this week has me reconfiguring so many things because I had read it a couple years back and I'm reading it again. I can't wait to go get into it with you guys. Junior, how are you doing today, my man?
Man, I'm excited like always. This is always a great opportunity for us to get together and just, like you said, go through this book, and it's life-changing.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it, man. I mean, so The One Thing by Gary Keller. This book is phenomenal. I have so many different pieces of this book that really matter to me. But I think I'm going to get started right away on the saying no, right? Which is a part that you kind of brought up beforehand.
Right.
And why is that so important to you, Junior? Tell me why this.
Yeah, I think because
maybe explaining it also. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I grew up in church, and when I read this book and just thinking about that idea, saying no, it kind of sounds selfish. And so when I heard that idea, it made me feel like, I can't say no. I can't do that because, that's not giving of myself, right? But the more I heard that successful people, they do it, it just made me realize, like, there's a reason why these people are able to contribute more to society than the normal or the average folk. And so I wanted to understand that on a deeper level. And the more I read about them, one of the main things that they say is, I say no to almost everything. And so they do it, but then they're able to give back more.
Right.
Because their time is more productive and they're able to give so much more back.
Right. And to drive the point home of what we're speaking about when we're saying no is, in The One Thing, you're picking your most important thing that you're focusing on, and you have to have the ability to say no to everything else that will hinder you from focusing on your one thing. And like Junior kind of mentioned, that could seem selfish.
Right.
And in many ways it is. But the reality is that if you're looking for super results, top producing results in the craft or career that you're in, it's going to take a dedication and a focus. And you really want to make sure that you're able to focus. And one of the biggest hurdles I think that most of us have in general is that, there are so many things going on in the world, right? Like, life is tough. Life's not easy. So we are all dealing with things, right? We're all dealing with things. And we literally have to be able to have the ability to say, hey, that is also important, but I have an objective and I really got to hunker and focus down on this. So I'm going to have to say no to other things in order to really get this done. And I think this is, when I first heard this, it hit home so much because I would say I'm a people pleaser, right? I think that's a part of my personality. I want to make everybody happy. I want everybody to like me. So it's super hard to say no for me, right? Because it makes me feel like almost like I let them down, or I'm letting them down.
Right.
And the reality is that I'm letting myself down if I'm not able to say no to certain things. And what we're talking about is the smaller things, right? You have an objective that you got to get done today because you got that test tomorrow, and you really got to focus today on studying. That's all you should be focusing on today is you're studying to get that test done. But your buddy just asked you, do you want to go out tonight? Obviously that's an easy one that should just be no. Do I want to? Wants and what I should be doing are completely different. So no, I don't think I should because I really want to get a good grade to excel and move on to my next task or move on to the next grade or whatever the case may be. But you can go even deeper and say like, now it could be something more real. Like, hey, I need a ride to the airport. I would love to give you a ride to the airport, but I literally have to study today. Oh man, but I really don't have unfortunately, I can't. And that's going to be where it gets really tricky because you're going to feel bad, right? You're going to be like, man, as a friend, I really wanted to take him. And if he's really your friend, guess what? He's going to understand. Right. They're going to understand. Because when you have a real big mission, the people that love you and the people that care about you, they may get upset with you from time to time, but they will understand if you're prioritizing hopefully what's the well-being for everybody in the long run.
Yeah, that's the point right there.
Right.
That part, and I feel like, it's so hard to just say no because of that. But then when you see the overall picture, you're like, wait a minute, if I do study for that exam and I pass this and I go where I need to go and I get the job that I need to get,
right,
I'm going to be able to take care of all my family, all those friends that are right now today they want my attention, but when the day comes, I'm going to be able to give it to them, and I'm going to be able to give it to them in a large scale.
100%.
So
100%.
That's a great point, man.
Yeah. So like that's definitely I think one of the biggest ones, the saying no. I think I know so many people, and myself included, that have fallen into the trap of being yes men, unfortunately, or of not having the ability to say no. And it doesn't mean anything about the person. Usually those are the most beautiful and great people. But a lot of times they're not meeting their goals because they're too busy saying yes to other things and they don't even see it, right? And that's where the issue lies. I can give many examples, and it's something that I actually like to joke around with people when they go, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time because I got to go take my mom over here and I got to go do this over there and I got to go do that over there. And it's like, okay, cool. Those are all valid things. But you're telling me your goal and objective is to do this. And the reality is that if you're having a hard time finding the time, then how will you ever do it? You won't, because you're not making the time to do it. And it becomes a balancing act, which we'll also talk about, where there's no true balance, right? You got to be extreme at certain points for your goals. If you have large goals, you're going to have to be a little extreme. And it's just so important for people to really be able to find the courage to take their time back and take their life back. And it's way easier said than done. And we can all fall into the trap. And we got to remind ourselves, we have to say no for the larger goal.
Somebody that I respect a lot, Warren Buffett, today I think he's like the 4th richest man in America or something like that, or in the world. But
and at some point I think he was number 1.
Yeah, exactly. So he said something that really hit home for me, and it was just you've got to keep control of your time, and you can't unless you say no. You can't let people set your agenda in life. And so for me that was deep because if we just let everybody and everything just keep telling us you got to be here at this time, you got to be, so then when will you do what you have to do for yourself to take care of your family, right?
I want to also just start by saying and focusing on the one thing. How do you choose your one thing? Yeah. How do you know what your one thing is, right? I think that might be one of the most difficult questions. I'm in real estate, right? I'm a real estate agent. And when you become a real estate agent, you realize really quick, there's a million routes you can go. There's a million decisions of, do you want to be a commercial agent? residential agent? Do you want to work with investors? Do you want to work with retail buyers? Do you want to work with buyers and sellers or sellers? Do you want to work with both? You know, how will you do your marketing? That's probably the biggest one, right? How will you do the marketing? Because the reality is that you can find out what the one thing in real estate as an agent is really quickly. It's lead generating. And people will always say that, oh, what's lead generating? Well, what's lead generating? Well, marketing, in another word, right? Marketing yourself, marketing your brand. All right, well, how will I market my brand? Well, guess what? I get 50 phone calls a day from different companies telling me how I should market my brand. Hey, you can call and you just pay me for the small fee of $3,000. You know, we'll put you on this magazine. We'll have you on this billboard. We'll have you do this. And you know, and then you ask agents, no, you should make cold calling. You should do cold calling. No, you should do direct mail. You should do this. The reality is that all of them work. You got to decide what's your one thing.
Yeah.
So really, like, it becomes a question of like, so what's the one thing in what's the one thing as a real estate agent? Lead generating. What's the one lead generation source that I feel will give me the best results? You know, for whatever person it is for you guys, right? Let's say cold calling. All right, cool. What's the best type of cold call I can make? You know, for sale by owners. Okay, I'm gonna direct for sale by owners. What's the best type of for sale by owner I can call? And literally, this is the process of getting to what your niche is and what your true one thing is. And I love that because Gary Keller gives, you know, I just broke it down kind of in a quick way, but the reality is that every idea that I just mentioned, I got from this book. And it comes from that. So the main thing that I just wanted to say before we got into anything else is just really we got to sit down and actually say, what is even our one thing?
Right.
And then from our one thing, we dissect even deeper and go, you know, well, all right, what's the one thing of our one thing? Right? And the reason for this is because, again, we're doing so much.
Yeah, and social media doesn't help because you get on there and then it's just like, it takes over your attention, your energy, your time. 3 hours pass by and you know you could have been marketing a lot more, but you get stuck there with the constant swipe up and swipe down.
Well, there's so many distractions, right?
So many, yeah.
So many distractions everywhere.
Right. And I think that once you finally get to that one thing, it's simple, but it's just disciplining yourself enough to stick to that one thing and getting better at it and just refining it and refining it and refining it.
100%. I think it's simple in theory. It's the hardest thing to do. I've been in real estate now for over half a decade, and I literally, reading this book again, am about to go and revamp my day. Because another topic that I would like to jump right into, which is time blocking. I think one of my biggest takeaways from this book, aside from say no, was time blocking. Time blocking, for me personally, the moment that I literally read this book a few years back, I was able to see a day and night shift in my life because I literally started blocking times for things. So like, for example, this podcast, we have our time that we block every week.
Right.
And I know exactly what I'm going to be doing, right? And it's organizing your day and scheduling out your day. But I'm a real estate agent. I probably got like 7 phone calls there. Does that mean that I'm a bad real estate agent? No. I have to prioritize. I have to be able to prioritize and say, I'm going to get to those phone calls today. I know what time I'm going to get to them because it's time blocked.
Right.
From 2 to 4 today, I'm going to get back to all those phone calls. But for this morning, I'm going to give my full undivided attention to the podcast and making sure that we set up, that we actually create the content and all that good stuff. And that comes from time blocking.
Right.
You know, being able to really time block your fitness, time block your time with your family, and time block your time for work.
Right.
And, you know, these guys give so many good examples here. And one of them is that, hey, when you're working, you're working. right? I'm not worried about, I wonder what my wife is doing right now. No, when I'm with my wife later, I will focus and give my undivided attention to my wife and my daughter
Right.
when it's time to do so. Right now, what I need to focus on is my job, is this podcast.
Right.
So it's just really taking your day seriously and time blocking, because you want to be as efficient as possible, which is also the goal in this, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that once you finally get honed in on it, and you find what that is for you, like you spoke about as a real estate agent, that's, you know, that lead generation, you got to work on something that has to do with lead generation, right? And then there's probably somebody watching that's like a physical trainer or something like that.
Right.
They have something completely different, you know, and once you spend hours and hours, and that takes time, but once you get there, that's like when you hit the sweet spot. That's where you see success, you know, and I feel like if we spend more time doing that, you know, we're gonna see that success we're looking for.
100%.
Right.
100%. One other phenomenally important thing that I feel like I got this time reading this book, which I think I wasn't ready to hear yet on last time I read it, was think big. And, you know, I think Gary Keller did a great job in this book of taking so many other books and kind of consolidating them in this one thought process. But really, when he talked about thinking big, and it's something that you really believe in, right? Like mentorship and, you know, following blueprints.
Right.
He's really saying, all right, you know, if you now have figured out your one thing and you know what your end goal is, well, now you got to look at the people that are reaching that goal and are there, and you got to surround yourself with people that are thinking in a very big way.
Right.
And I'll say, you know, for as much real estate or whatever the case may be, I still have a very hard time with it. I think I'm a humble person who comes from a humble background, and I think that every time I got to think bigger, do bigger things, it takes me getting out of this comfort zone that I'm in, or even a belief system that a lot of times is just ingrained in my subconscious.
Right.
And that is a big reason why I appreciate you coming and doing this with me, and also even your thoughts sometimes, even when I'm like, hey, you know, ease up there, Tiger, with you dreaming about the future. Right. But the reality is, it's encouraging, and I shouldn't discourage that, or even, because it is important to do that. It is important to think big and to act even bigger, right?
Right.
And by act, I mean do the actions that are even bigger. Like, you know, again, humble beginnings. We're starting this podcast. We're, you know, putting everything together and everything like that. But we really got to look at what are our ideal podcasts, what are our ideal scenarios, and how do we get there, and who's already doing it, and who can we connect with and network with, and who can we invite on that's already doing it. Right. Because that's going to rub off, and that's going to ultimately get us to our one thing a lot faster and a lot better.
Right.
And a lot quicker. And it's something that I just wanted to point out that was in this book, the think big thought process.
I also like what you said about micro and macro, because I tend to do that a lot, and I'm like, man, we're gonna do this, we're gonna get these type of guests, we're gonna do all this stuff. But you're like, let's do micro first, which I don't think is not a bad thing. It's kind of what Gary Keller talks about, the domino effect, right? Where it's like, just start with the micro, and then macro is coming. Right. So, you know, you always kind of put me, I don't see it like a bad thing. I kind of see it like, get control of this moment next. And then the macro will come. But if 100%. You can just focus on this, then we could talk about that next time we meet up again.
Right.
So I do like that, because you're not downplaying my dream. I feel like you're just kind of like structuring a little bit better. Right. Where we're going. So
using the one thing, right?
Yeah. So
saying, hey, right now we gotta gear in on this.
Right. So I think that's good to have someone like yourself in my corner, someone that kind of just says, yeah, it's I see where you're going, but let's just focus on next time we meet. Right. So I do like that, and I appreciate that, and I feel like more people kind of need someone like this, especially my personality is I am the type to wander into like 10 years from now, which is not bad, is what you're saying. But,
Right.
But I do it often, so much that sometimes I might not do something because I'm thinking so much about 10 years, 20 years.
About the far ahead.
So it's a great point you made.
No, and I love it. And I think that with the think big also is like the networking. For me personally, I know it's one, what this is about and what we're going to focus on, like 2024, 2025 is going to be big focus on networking.
Right.
And networking up. And what I mean by that is really getting people around me and connecting with people that are doing what I want to do on a very high level.
Right.
And it's because the blueprints are already there, right?
Right.
They're already there. So it's like we've already laid down the foundation, we've laid down the groundwork, and now it's time to think big and shoot for the stars.
Right.
And in your one thing, you know your one thing, you start with the motions, with the steps, and then now also connect with the network around you that already has the blueprint, so you can also excel and get there quicker.
Yeah. As you said before, like to share more personal stuff and don't just keep it like in theory, right? Like,
yeah.
I think it's a good thing to note too, like based off of what you're saying, I went to Tennessee, Chicago.
Oh, right.
Right, and I think because based off of what you said.
What was the gentleman's name again?
So one of them was Felipe.
Okay.
Right. And another one was Jamal King.
What is Felipe's Instagram and all that?
Felipe Mejia.
Mejia.
I could be saying that his last name wrong, but Felipe Mejia, great guy. Really challenged me to just step up my real estate game. But he said some things that I had to hear, and I had to open my mind a little bit more to investing, right?
Right.
Going back to structuring, like what you do a lot, is just like, you're all over the place, but get narrow focus, right?
Right,
so
right.
That's what he did a good job of, and just getting around that expands your mind.
And you also saw on that trip, he was in what, Tennessee?
Tennessee, yeah.
That's awesome. I would love to learn a little bit more about that market.
Yeah.
And then you also went and got together with Jamal King.
Yeah, that was a great experience too. He passed a lot of faith to me, right? Because he also is a believer. He believes in God. And he just said, he really instilled in me how I have to have faith to do this.
Okay.
To do what I'm trying to do, you gotta have faith, is what he told me. And I remember him saying specifically, I don't deal with people who are scared. He kept on repeating that. He's like, look, one of the things you can't be is fearful doing this. You gotta believe, right? And one thing that he did that I really like too, is that he got the phone and he said, hey, I want you to call somebody right this second that you can call, and they'll say, yeah, this man is a man of faith. And if you can't do that, you have some work to do. And so those type of things really challenged me, right? Like,
and were you able to do that?
I didn't do it. No, I didn't do it just because I didn't want to do it. But it was.
Wait, why didn't you want to do that? You could have called so many people and got that.
I could have easily called my mother-in-law. I could have, but it was kind of an example he was giving me, right?
Gotcha.
He was just like, look.
Oh, okay, because I'm like, you are a man of faith. You would have got that.
Yeah. But he called his friend up, and right away, and it was an interesting moment for me. And I was like,
that's awesome.
I see what he was trying to teach
character.
me.
He's telling you, like, my character follows me.
Exactly. And then so just being with those two individuals expanded my mind. And made me realize the one thing. Like, I noticed about Jamal King is that he had an hour and 30 minutes with me, or an hour, but it was an undivided hour with me. Right? He stood with me, narrow focus. And one of the reasons why I believe he's so successful today is because he practices this, right? He was with me, and he wasn't all over the place.
Right.
Out of everybody that I got to speak with over there, besides Felipe, because I got to work with his assistant, which is a great woman, by the way.
Shout out to her. What's her name?
Shout out April Troop. Great.
Shout out to her.
Great investor as well. She taught me a lot. But I remember just sitting with him and him just laser focus on what was going on with us, on what we needed to do next. And that showed me a lot. So it's like what you said, getting around it was like, wow, this is real. Like, this is what the one thing looks like in real life.
Yep. So think big, mentorship,
Right.
networking. I think it's so important and something that I know I'm personally going to be focused on. You're already doing, and we'll be doing more of together.
Of course.
But yeah, this book is highly recommended. One of my favorites. I definitely recommend it to you guys. I hope we hit some good points from the book for you and gave you guys some valuable information here. And that was Everything is Everything. My name is Vladimir Ledesma.
And my name is Fabio Suarez.
And we will catch you guys on the next one.
Until next time.
This is extraordinary. Can't ignore it. This my story. I've been more than ready.